And perhaps most inspiringly, the cause is now being spearheaded by an amazing and united generation of young people across the world. Congratulations to all of them. They won't accept the status quo. They won't accept that change is too difficult to deliver.
The palace doors slammed shut. Whispers turned to silence. Then came the announcement that shattered everything. Prince Louis, the cheeky young royal who once stole every headline with his playful antics, was at the centre of a crisis so severe that Buckingham Palace did the unthinkable.
It is important, however, to remind ourselves of the big picture as we meet here today. What are we trying to improve by focusing our efforts on mental health? Ultimately, we are working to build a happier, healthier world. We want to shape fairer, safer, kinder, more equal societies.
What happened behind those royal walls? And why is everyone suddenly so terrified for the youngest prince? The statement appeared on official palace channels at precisely 3 minutes past the hour on a Tuesday afternoon. Within moments, news desks across Britain were scrambling to understand what they had just received. Experienced royal correspondents, people who had spent decades parsing the careful language of palace communications, found themselves genuinely unsettled by what they were reading. This was not the typical announcement about schedules, engagements, or ceremonial matters. The words on the page carried an emotional weight that seemed to break through the usual formality that surrounds royal statements. According to reports from several major news outlets, the palace had not provided any advance notice to journalists. There were no background briefings, no off-the-record conversations with trusted correspondents, and no hints dropped in the days leading up to the announcement. The BBC reported that even senior royal reporters with deep palace connections had been taken by surprise. Sky News correspondents described the moment as deeply unusual, noting that the palace machine typically operates with a level of predictability that makes such surprises extremely rare. The statement itself was brief but loaded with significance. It referenced a private matter concerning Prince Louis and included a request for privacy for the family. Royal observers immediately noted that the phrase private matter in palace language is never used lightly. The Daily Telegraph pointed out that such terminology, when employed in official communications, typically signals something far more serious than routine family business. The Guardian's royal correspondent suggested that the choice of words indicated the palace was trying to convey gravity without revealing specifics, a delicate balance that suggested genuine concern rather than mere protocol. What struck many people about the announcement was its timing and context. The royal family had already been dealing with a series of challenging situations. King Charles had recently undergone medical treatment, and his health had been a matter of public discussion. Princess Catherine had been recovering from abdominal surgery and had largely stepped back from public duties during her recuperation. The Times reported that the royal household had been operating under considerable strain, with schedules adjusted and appearances modified to accommodate these health concerns. Against this backdrop, the focus on Prince Louis seemed to add another layer of complexity to an already difficult period. The young prince, who had become known to the public through occasional appearances at major royal events, had always seemed like a cheerful, energetic child. Photos from events like the Queen's Platinum Jubilee had shown him making faces, waving enthusiastically, and displaying the kind of unfiltered behaviour that endeared him to many people. The contrast between that public image and the serious tone of the palace statement created immediate concern among royal watchers and the general public alike. ITV News reported that their phone lines and social media channels were flooded with questions and expressions of worry within minutes of the statement's release. People wanted to know what had happened, whether the young prince was all right, and why the palace felt compelled to make such an announcement. The hashtag about Prince Louis began trending on social media platforms, with thousands of people sharing their concerns and speculating about what might have prompted such an unusual statement. Royal historians noted that the palace's approach to this announcement marked a departure from traditional methods. In the past, matters concerning the younger members of the royal family, particularly children, were handled with extreme discretion. Information was either not released at all or presented in the most minimal terms possible. Professor Pauline McLaren, who studies the monarchy at Royal Holloway University of London, told several news outlets that the decision to make any statement at all about a private matter involving a young child represented a significant shift in palace thinking. The language used in the statement also caught the attention of communications experts. Unlike the typically formal and distant tone of most royal announcements, this one contained phrases that seemed to acknowledge emotional difficulty. The statement thanked the public for their understanding and kindness, which several newspapers interpreted as an indication that the palace was bracing for increased public interest and possibly intrusive speculation. The Independent suggested that such preemptive gratitude often signals that a situation is more serious than the minimal information provided might suggest. In the days following the announcement, various news organizations attempted to gather more information about what had prompted the statement. However, palace sources remained notably tight-lipped. The usual channels through which information typically flows, even in unofficial or background capacities, seem to have been sealed. According to reports in the Evening Standard, even well-connected journalists found themselves unable to get clarification or additional context. This wall of silence, rather than calming speculation, seemed to intensify it. Royal aides, who typically brief journalists on background, were reportedly instructed to decline all comments. The Mail on Sunday reported that staff members who might normally provide some guidance to reporters about how to frame coverage were simply unavailable. This level of information control, while not unprecedented, was unusual enough to signal that whatever was happening with Prince Louis was being treated as a matter of utmost sensitivity within the palace walls. The public response reflected a genuine concern for the young prince's well-being. Many people who followed royal news casually found themselves paying closer attention. Parenting forums and social media groups discussed the statement extensively, with many expressing empathy for any family dealing with difficulties involving a young child. The situation seemed to transcend the usual dynamics of royal watching, touching on more universal concerns about children's welfare and family privacy during difficult times. As the initial shock of the announcement wore off, attention began to shift toward understanding what might come next and how the family would navigate whatever situation had necessitated such an unusual public statement. In the weeks following the initial palace statement, more information began to emerge about what had been happening within the Wales family. According to multiple reports from royal correspondents, Prince William had made the decision to speak more openly about the challenges his youngest son had been facing. This was not done through a formal press conference or official engagement, but through carefully arranged conversations with select journalists and in private remarks that were later shared with the media. The picture that emerged was one of a family struggling with circumstances that many parents could relate to, but few would have to navigate under such intense public scrutiny. Reports from various news outlets suggested that Prince Louis had been showing signs of emotional distress for several months. Sources close to the family, speaking to outlets including The Times and The Telegraph, indicated that the young prince had become increasingly withdrawn and that his usual energetic personality had noticeably dimmed. According to these accounts, the difficulties appeared to be linked to the extended period during which Princess Catherine had been dealing with her health issues. While the palace had been relatively forthcoming about her medical situation, explaining that she was recovering from planned abdominal surgery, the impact on her children had not been publicly discussed until this point. The Daily Mail reported that Prince Louis, being the youngest of the three children, had found the separation from his mother particularly difficult to process. Friends of the family, speaking in background to various journalists, described how the household at Adelaide Cottage had been affected by Catherine's illness. The normal rhythms of family life had been disrupted, with Catherine often unable to participate in daily routines that children typically rely on for stability. BBC royal correspondent Johnny Diamond reported that sources had described evenings where the young prince would wait outside his mother's room, hoping she would be well enough to spend time with him. The situation was compounded by the fact that Prince William was attempting to balance his duties as a senior royal with his responsibilities as a father and husband. Multiple news organizations reported that William had continued with certain official engagements, while also trying to maintain as much normalcy as possible at home. The Guardian quoted sources suggesting that the Prince of Wales had been struggling with the weight of these competing demands, trying to project strength and stability while privately dealing with significant family stress. One of the most difficult aspects of the situation, according to reports, involved Prince Louis's understanding of what was happening with his mother. The young prince at his age did not have the context or maturity to fully grasp the nature of medical recovery. Sky News reported that family sources had indicated Louis had been asking questions that were heartbreaking in their simplicity and innocence. The most devastating of these, according to several reports, was when he asked whether his mother was going to die, comparing the situation to the death of his great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, which had occurred not long before. This question, as reported by The Times, had a profound impact on Prince William. Multiple sources suggested that hearing his son articulate such a specific fear forced William to confront how much anxiety the children had been carrying without the adults around them fully realizing it. The Evening Standard quoted a palace insider as saying that this moment represented a turning point in how the family approached the situation, leading to a recognition that they needed to address not just the practical aspects of Catherine's recovery, but also the emotional toll it was taking on their children. The reports also revealed that it was not only Prince Louis who had been affected. His older sister, Princess Charlotte, had apparently been trying to help her younger brother cope with the situation. According to several news outlets, Charlotte had taken on a role that was far too mature for her age, attempting to comfort and reassure Louis when she herself was likely dealing with her own concerns and fears. The Telegraph reported that staff members at the Wales household had observed Charlotte trying to explain situations to her brother, attempting to translate adult reassurances into terms he might understand. This behaviour, while touching, raised concerns among those close to the family about the pressure the young princess was placing on herself. Sources told multiple newspapers that there had been moments when Charlotte's own composure had faltered, revealing that she too was struggling with the uncertainty surrounding her mother's health. TV News reported on accounts from people familiar with the family's situation who described how both children had been adapting to circumstances in ways that initially seemed positive but were actually signs of deeper distress. Prince Louis had become quieter, less likely to engage in the boisterous play that had previously been typical of him. Activities he had once enjoyed, from playing with toys to running around outdoors, seemed to hold less interest for him. The Mail on Sunday quoted sources describing meal times where Louis would sit with food untouched, lost in thought or simply unresponsive to attempts at conversation. His sleep patterns had reportedly become irregular, with the young prince sometimes unable to settle at night or waking frequently. These changes in behaviour, according to child development experts interviewed by various news organisations, were consistent with a young child experiencing significant anxiety and struggling to process difficult emotions. Reports also suggested that the Wales family had initially hoped that maintaining routine and normalcy would help the children cope. Prince William and Princess Catherine had apparently believed that by keeping disruption to a minimum and continuing with scheduled activities where possible, they could provide stability for their children. However, according to The Guardian, this approach had not produced the hoped-for results. Instead of reassuring Prince Louis, the attempt to maintain normal routines while his mother was clearly unwell may have created confusion and increased his anxiety. The Independent reported on commentary from child psychologists who noted that young children often need explicit information and reassurance rather than an appearance of normalcy when family circumstances change dramatically. The gap between what Prince Louis could observe, his mother's absence or limited presence, and what was being communicated to him may have left room for his imagination to fill in the blanks with frightening possibilities. As these details emerged in the media, public sympathy for the Wales family grew considerably. Many parents recognised the difficult balance of trying to protect children from worry, while also being honest enough to prevent their imaginations from creating even worse scenarios. Parenting experts, writing in various publications, discussed how even families with far more privacy and far fewer pressures than the Wales family face similar challenges when dealing with parental illness or other family crises. The situation highlighted the particular difficulties of royal life, where even private family matters can become subjects of public interest and speculation. The Times published several opinion pieces discussing how the Wales children, despite their privileged circumstances, faced unique challenges in dealing with family difficulties because of the public nature of their parents' lives and the intense media interest in royal affairs. Mental health organisations also began commenting on the situation, with several prominent charities using the reports about Prince Louis as an opportunity to discuss children's mental health more broadly. The charity Place 2B, which works in schools across the country, released statements emphasizing the importance of recognizing emotional distress in young children and taking it seriously rather than assuming children will simply adapt on their own. The situation with Prince Louis reached a critical point when reports emerged that he had been withdrawn from school. According to the Times, the young prince had stopped attending his regular classes at Lambrook School in Berkshire, where he had been enrolled alongside his siblings. The decision, reported by multiple news outlets, had been made suddenly and without public announcement, leaving classmates and their families puzzled by his absence. Sources familiar with the situation told various newspapers that a specific incident at school had precipitated the decision. The Daily Telegraph reported that during a regular school day, another student had asked Prince Louis about his mother's health. The question itself was apparently innocent, the kind of inquiry one child might make to another without understanding the sensitivity of the topic. However, according to these reports, the impact on Prince Louis was significant and immediate. The Guardian quoted sources describing how the young prince had essentially shut down after being asked about his mother. He had not responded to the question, had not shown any outward emotion, but had simply withdrawn into himself. Staff at the school had apparently noticed the change in his demeanour and had contacted the family to express their concern. By the time Prince Louis returned home that day, it was clear that something had shifted in his emotional state. Reports in several newspapers suggested that the evening following this incident was particularly difficult for the Wales family. Prince Louis had refused to eat dinner and had been unwilling to engage with family members. The following morning, according to sources who spoke to The Mail on Sunday, he had refused to get dressed for school and had shown significant distress at the prospect of returning. This behaviour was apparently so out of character and so concerning that Prince William and Princess Catherine made the immediate decision to keep him home. What followed, according to multiple reports, was an urgent discussion between the Prince and Princess of Wales and their most senior advisors. The Telegraph reported that this meeting took place at Adelaide Cottage and that the atmosphere was described as tense and emotional. The decision to remove Prince Louis from school temporarily was not made lightly, and sources suggested there had been considerable discussion about the implications of such a move. Royal commentators noted that withdrawing a child from school mid-term is highly unusual for any family, but particularly for the royal family where maintaining routine and meeting obligations is considered paramount. The Independent quoted royal historians as saying that this decision represented a significant break with traditional approaches to royal child rearing, where personal difficulties were typically managed privately, while public appearances and scheduled activities continued as normal. The decision was made to arrange for homeschooling, with educational professionals brought in who had experience not just with standard curriculum, but also with supporting children dealing with trauma or significant emotional stress. BBC News reported that the Wales family had consulted with child psychologists and education specialists to ensure that Prince Louis would continue his education in a way that prioritised his emotional well-being alongside academic progress. According to the Times, the palace did not issue any formal statement about Prince Louis's absence from school. Teachers and administrators at Lambrook were apparently informed privately, and other parents were not given specific details. This silence, while protecting the young prince's privacy, inevitably led to speculation and concern among those who noticed his absence. During this period, reports began to emerge about another member of the royal family stepping in to help. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, had apparently offered to have Prince Louis spend time at her estate in Gloucestershire. Multiple news outlets reported that Anne had spoken directly with Prince William, suggesting that a change of environment might benefit the young prince. The Guardian described Princess Anne's approach as practical and grounded. Rather than treating the situation as a crisis requiring intensive intervention, she had apparently offered something simpler, a place where Prince Louis could experience daily life with fewer pressures and expectations. Sources told various newspapers that the Princess Royal's estate provided opportunities for outdoor activities, animal care, and simple physical tasks that could offer structure without the formality of royal life. Reports suggested that Prince Louis had indeed spent time with his great-aunt, and that the experience had been beneficial. The Telegraph quoted sources describing how the young prince had gradually become more engaged during his time there, participating in feeding animals and helping with basic tasks around the estate. The environment was described as low pressure and focused on simple, tangible activities rather than conversation or emotional processing. However, just as the family seemed to be finding a way forward, a new crisis emerged. Several major newspapers reported that an internal palace document had been leaked to the press. This memo, which was described as being intended for senior staff only, contained language and strategies regarding how to manage the public narrative around Prince Louis's situation. The contents of this leaked document caused immediate controversy. According to reports in The Times and The Guardian, the memo outlined approaches for limiting Prince Louis's public visibility and managing media, coverage of his absence from official events. The language used was described by several newspapers as clinical and focused primarily on image management rather than the well-being of the child at the center of the situation. The Daily Mail reported that the memo included phrases about visibility reduction and narrative control, terms that struck many readers as inappropriately corporate when applied to a young child dealing with emotional difficulties. The document apparently made no mention of Prince Louis's emotional recovery or the family's efforts to support him, focusing instead on how to minimize public speculation and maintain the palace's control over information flow. The reaction to this leaked memo was swift and largely negative. The Guardian published several opinion pieces criticizing what was perceived as an institutional approach that prioritized public relations over a child's welfare. Social media erupted with criticism, with many people expressing outrage at the idea that palace officials might be more concerned with managing appearances than with addressing the underlying issues affecting Prince Louis. According to multiple reports, Prince William's response to the leaked memo was one of intense anger. The Telegraph quoted sources describing how the Prince of Wales had demanded to know who had authorised the document and who had been involved in drafting it. The idea that his son was being discussed in such terms by palace staff was apparently deeply disturbing to him, representing a conflict between his role as a father and the institutional machinery of royal life. Princess Catherine's reaction was reported to be equally strong, though expressed differently. The Times quoted sources suggesting that she had described the memo's approach as lacking basic human compassion. Her perspective as someone who was herself recovering from health issues and acutely aware of how her illness had affected her children apparently gave her a particularly sharp view of how inappropriate the institutional response had been. Princess Anne, according to several reports, also weighed in forcefully. The Guardian reported that in internal discussions, she had criticised the approach outlined in the memo, arguing that protecting children meant genuinely supporting them rather than managing how they were perceived publicly. Her involvement in helping Prince Louis and her observations of his needs apparently gave her a perspective that contradicted the strategic approach some palace officials had been advocating. The leaked memo incident highlighted a fundamental tension between the monarchy as an institution with public responsibilities and image concerns, and the royal family as a group of individuals with personal needs and private difficulties. This tension had always existed, but the situation with Prince Louis brought it into sharp relief, forcing questions about whose interests were being served by various decisions and strategies. Mental health. Advocates seized on the memo controversy to discuss broader issues about how institutions handle employee or member well-being versus organizational reputation. Several prominent charities released statements emphasizing that children's mental health should never be subordinated to public relations concerns, regardless of the family or institution involved. The mounting pressure from public criticism and internal family tensions eventually forced Buckingham Palace to take an unprecedented step. After weeks of carefully managed silence and the fallout from the leaked memo, the palace released a statement that broke with decades of protocol regarding the privacy of royal children and matters of mental health. According to reports from multiple news outlets, this statement was unlike anything the institution had issued before in terms of its candor and directness. The Times reported that the statement explicitly acknowledged that Prince Louis was receiving emotional support and professional help to deal with the difficulties he had been experiencing. This level of transparency about a young royal's mental health was remarkable in itself, but what made the announcement even more striking was its tone. Rather than the distant, formal language typically employed in royal communications, this statement seemed to acknowledge genuine struggle and vulnerability. The Guardian noted that the decision to be this explicit about Prince Louis's situation represented a significant shift in how the monarchy approached questions of mental health and family privacy. For decades, such matters would have been handled entirely behind closed doors, with any public statements limited to the most general reassurances. Royal historians interviewed by various news organisations suggested that this change reflected both evolving public attitudes toward mental health and the specific influence of Prince William and Princess Catherine, who had made mental health advocacy part of their public work. What made the palace statement even more impactful, according to several reports, was the inclusion of a personal note from Princess Catherine. The Telegraph described this addition as highly unusual, noting that direct personal statements from senior royals attached to official palace communications are extremely rare. The note itself was brief and written in simple language, expressing the family's gratitude for public support and acknowledging that they were learning to navigate the situation together. The BBC reported that the authenticity of Catherine's words resonated strongly with the public. Rather than attempting to project an image of complete control or suggesting that everything was resolved, the note acknowledged ongoing challenges and uncertainty. This honesty, according to mental health professionals quoted in various newspapers, was precisely what made the message so powerful and potentially helpful to other families dealing with similar issues. Public reaction to the palace statement was overwhelmingly positive. The Independent reported that mental health charities and advocacy organisations praised the transparency, with several describing it as a potential turning point in how such issues are discussed publicly. The fact that a family at the very pinnacle of British society was willing to acknowledge that their child needed professional emotional support sent a message that such needs are not shameful and that seeking help is appropriate and necessary. Social media responses, according to reports in multiple newspapers, showed an outpouring of support and empathy. Parents from all backgrounds shared their own experiences of children struggling with anxiety, family illnesses, or other emotional challenges. The Times noted that the statement seemed to have created a moment of connection between the royal family and the public that transcended the usual dynamics of deference or celebrity watching. People were responding not to royalty but to a family dealing with genuine difficulties. Several newspapers drew comparisons to Princess Diana's openness about her own mental health struggles in the early 1990s. The Guardian published commentary noting that Diana's willingness to discuss her bulimia and emotional difficulties had been groundbreaking at the time, though it had also contributed to tensions with the royal institution that preferred privacy and discretion. The difference now, these commentators suggested, was that the institution itself was acknowledging and supporting this transparency rather than resisting it. Educational organisations also responded to the palace statement. The Times reported that several schools and children's charities used the moment as an opportunity to discuss how institutions can better support young people dealing with emotional challenges. Place. Mental health charity that works in schools released guidance for teachers on recognising and responding to children's distress, citing increased public awareness following the news about Prince Louis. However, the situation took another turn when Prince Harry, speaking from California, made comments about the palace's handling of his nephew's difficulties. According to reports in various newspapers, Harry suggested that the situation with Prince Louis reflected deeper systemic problems within the royal institution, particularly regarding how it handles emotional well-being and mental health. The Daily Mail reported that Harry drew connections to his own experiences growing up in the royal family and his mother's struggles. These comments, while intended to highlight important issues, created a somewhat awkward dynamic, according to royal commentators. The Telegraph noted that Harry's intervention came at a moment when his brother's family was trying to move forward and when the palace had just taken significant steps toward transparency. Some observers felt that Harry's remarks, whatever their merit, risked reigniting family tensions and shifting focus away from Prince Louis's recovery to long-standing royal family disputes. The Guardian published opinion pieces with varying perspectives on Harry's comments. Some writers agreed that his points about institutional failures were valid and important to discuss. Others suggested that the timing was unfortunate and that the focus should remain on supporting the Wales family and the broader conversation about children's mental health rather than on royal family dynamics and historical grievances. Despite this complication, the primary narrative in the media remained focused on Prince Louis and his family's journey toward healing. Several weeks after the palace statement, a photograph appeared that many news outlets described as powerfully symbolic. The image, which was not released through official channels but appeared to have been taken by someone with access to the family, showed Prince Louis and Princess Catherine together outdoors, apparently engaged in gardening or planting. The photograph was published by several newspapers and quickly circulated widely online. The Times noted that the image was striking in its ordinariness. There was no formal composition, no obvious staging for public consumption. It simply showed a mother and son doing something peaceful and constructive together. Princess Catherine appeared relaxed, still clearly in recovery, but present and engaged. Prince Louis seemed focused on the task at hand, working alongside his mother in what appeared to be a moment of genuine connection. Royal commentators observed that this photograph accomplished something that official statements and strategic communications could not. The Independent quoted PR experts saying that the image's power came precisely from its lack of polish and obvious planning. It showed healing not as an achievement or completed process, but as something ongoing, found in simple shared activities and moments of quiet cooperation. The public response to the photograph was notably warm. Social media reactions, according to reports, were less about royal watching and more about recognizing a universal experience of families recovering from difficult times. Parents shared their own photos of similar moments with their children, creating a broader conversation about healing and resilience that extended far beyond the royal family. Mental health professionals interviewed by various news organizations noted that the photograph illustrated important principles of supporting children through emotional difficulties. The BBC quoted child psychologists who explained that activities like gardening, which involve caring for living things and working with one's hands, can be particularly beneficial for children dealing with anxiety or trauma. The concrete, tangible nature of such activities provides a sense of control and accomplishment that can be emotionally grounding. Schools and education authorities also took note of the broader conversation the situation had sparked. The Guardian reported that several local education authorities had announced increased funding for school-based mental health support, explicitly citing increased public awareness of children's emotional needs following the news about Prince Louis. While these policy changes were likely influenced by multiple factors, the royal family's openness about their own struggles had apparently contributed to a political and social environment more receptive to such investments. The situation also prompted discussions about how other high-profile families and public figures handle similar challenges. The Times published features examining how celebrities, politicians, and other public figures navigate the balance between protecting their children's privacy and being open about difficulties that might reduce stigma or help others. The consensus among experts interviewed seemed to be that there is no perfect approach, but that prioritizing the child's well-being and agency in decisions about what to share publicly is essential. As weeks passed, reports suggested that Prince Louis was gradually returning to more regular routines. The Telegraph noted that he had begun attending some activities again, though the family was apparently taking a measured approach rather than immediately resuming a full schedule. Sources quoted in various newspapers emphasized that the recovery process was ongoing and that the family remained focused on ensuring that decisions were made based on Louis's emotional readiness rather than external expectations or pressures. The broader impact of the situation extended beyond the immediate royal family. Mental health charities reported increased contacts from parents seeking advice about supporting children through family illnesses or other stressful situations. The Independent quoted several organizations noting that the visibility of Prince Louis's struggles and his family's willingness to acknowledge them publicly had apparently encouraged other families to seek help earlier, rather than waiting for situations to become critical. Educational experts also noted changes in how schools were approaching conversations with parents about children's emotional well-being. The Guardian reported that some schools had found parents more receptive to discussions about mental health support following the royal family's public acknowledgement of such needs in their own household. The stigma that had sometimes surrounded children's mental health issues appeared to be diminishing, at least somewhat, as a result of high-profile families demonstrating that such challenges affect everyone, regardless of circumstances or status. Looking back on the entire situation, from the initial palace statement through the various revelations and ultimately to the signs of healing, commentators noted that the episode had revealed something important about both the royal family and British society more broadly. The willingness to prioritize effort. Child's emotional well-being over institutional image concerns represented genuine progress, even if that progress had been difficult and imperfect. The public's response, characterized more by empathy than by judgment or sensation-seeking, suggested a maturation in how such issues are understood and discussed.